Okay, welcome to the 10 subseries Tech Culture with BetterCulture. I'm Shauna Dorsey with the Nebraska Tech Collaborative powered by Exarban. And today I'm here with a guest co host.
Kevin Hensel, senior consultant with BetterCulture.
Excellent. So, if you're not familiar with this series, it's going over the 20 tenets of Better Culture. We're on Tenet 14 today.
That's right.
And so, tell us about Tenet
Tenet
14.
14 is all aboard.
Okay.
So all of these tenets come together as kind of 20 foundational attitudes and behaviors to help make people be more successful at work and in
Hmm.
life. And so, as you said, we're up to number 14 out of 20, and this is all aboard. I'm sure most folks have either experienced or been privy to the meeting after the meeting, right?
Yes, indeed.
And so all aboard is really about coming together and supporting the decisions that are being made,
Hmm.
either within teams, by a supervisor, or by the organization. And kind of that particular tenant and the video describes some of the adversarial results that can happen by folks kind of going one off and going a little rogue. This level of professionalism, if you will, of even if you're not in agreement, when the door opens after the meeting, everybody's locked arms and said, "This is the direction that we're heading."
Mm.
Um, if folks are not on board and are um, kind of verbally making it aware that they're not on board, not only is it detrimental to that decision potentially, right? Is that individual going to be working towards that particular vision or that decision? But the folks that are around them, either they're leading or their peers, are somewhat going to be impacted as well, right? It creates a little bit of tension in, well, should I be on board if they're not on board,
Mm.
right? And what that ends up looking like.
Right. Wow. I can see how situations like that kind of erode trust, and all of the things that are so important to maintain in a productive, healthy working environment.
Absolutely. And Shauna, you hit the nail on the head. It's really about trust. And where that trust really erodes, and I've seen it happen personally, is where you leave a meeting or you've had a conversation around a particular decision and no one has voiced any dissension.
Mm.
And then you find out later that you had folks that were not on board,
Right.
right? Which is an opportunity to reflect back and say, am I as a leader creating an environment that folks can speak up and
Hmm.
say, I don't know if I'm completely there on this yet,
Yep.
right? But we're back to ultimately once the decision has been made, it needs to be supported even if you're not fully on board. Part of this challenge ends up just being who we are as humans, right?
Fair. Yes.
And our tendency to second guess of
Hmm.
if indeed a decision does not go the way that was expected, right? That ability for our ego to say, "See, I told you that wasn't going to happen,
Sure.
going to work out," right?
Hmm.
Or the tendency to believe that the decision maybe that you would have made would have worked,
Mm.
right? But we have no guarantee that that was going to
True.
be the case.
Yep.
So a little bit of it is that human ego, if you will, of, well, I would have made a better decision and it would have worked. That's fallacy,
Right.
right?
So interesting. And so just backing up a little bit to the conversation, the meeting that might happen and the people who aren't speaking up, what are some things we can do as leaders to make it more comfortable? And let's say this is in a culture maybe or in a company culture where people's opinions aren't often brought to the table. So just
Mhm.
kind of throwing out those two scenarios. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, again, it's about building those relationships, and you said it earlier, that just absolute foundation of trust.
Hmm.
That I'm going to be able to bring an idea to the table, and that it be heard, but with an understanding that it might not be utilized, but at
Exactly.
least it can be heard,
Hmm.
right? And it's setting those expectations in advance as a leader, a formal leader. it's also your responses to those ideas, and especially to the dissension to an idea.
Mhm.
If I can speak up and know that having a different perspective, I can have that in a safe space, and the conversation be had, that's the ultimate,
Mhm.
right? And as a leader, I want those other perspectives. There may be some things I hadn't thought of,
Yep.
pitfalls to a particular decision that someone else brings up and says, "Oh, I had no idea, didn't think about that,"
Mhm.
right? And so eh, we these tenants start blending together, right?
Yep.
But if we're really being fair and we're being all aboard, even speaking up and saying, "I don't know that I agree with this," or "Have you thought about?" That's as on board as someone who just, well, probably even more so than someone who just sits back, accepts it without really having any buy-in.
Yes. That's so true. This is fascinating. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for companies, especially those like growing, maturing, when you have staff changes, for sure that happens when you're bringing someone new into the organization and wanting them to feel like they're a part of things,
Right.
that this is a huge opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. And as we're bringing new people into organizations, and especially those organizations that are growing, isn't that the value that these individuals bring, is expertise and experience that maybe doesn't already exist in the organization. So why do you want that stifled,
Yes.
right? But again, balanced with the fact that, hey, I can bring my ideas, I can bring and share my experiences, but the organization may choose to go in a different
Right.
way, right? And not kind of stomping your feet of, well, my idea was a good idea and they didn't use it.
Yes, exactly. And I love that thought too of like having that kind of constructive, productive conflict within a meeting, if you will, but then walking out and saying, at the end of the day, this is what we're agreeing to, and we're walking out in agreement, even if we didn't get our way in this meeting, but it's for the greater good. And we'll come back and reflect and see how it went, and then continue to move forward and evolve, but not have these sidebar conversations about
Right,
it.
right.
Hmm.
I love that you focused on trust right off the bat, because
Hmm.
that really is the key to making all aboard work.
Yep.
Because if we have the trust, now we've got the opportunity to have the conflict
Yep.
and the differing opinions and differing perspectives.
Yes.
But once all of that is discussed and aired out, now it's time to commit,
Yep.
right? And if we can trust that the commitment is there, now everybody's going to be much more apt to be self-accountable and hold each other accountable to that decision.
Yes. I love it. That's great. So we have I know this was like a quick one, but any
Yeah.
final thoughts you want to share on this specific topic?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right?
Mhm.
Especially if truly innately I don't agree. But I believe Dr. Hoageveen talked about restraint in the previous tenant,
Mhm.
and that's that you've got to restrain really what your opinion is
Yep.
to not negatively influence others. And again, this is where I love that all of the tenants start working interdependently.
They really do. And I love the thought too of just like it's not about not being fully expressive or authentic. It's really about like what is really in the greatest interest of what we're all collectively trying to get done. So it's not about the individual, it's about the team, the
Exactly.
company, etc.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Yes.
Good deal. Okay. Well, thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you. It's wonderful.